Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Chris Hillman, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Robinson, David Wayne Foster, Dick Earth Skeptic, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, Godrockin, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Maria Neelands, Missouri Bear, NA Literalist, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Rob H, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, Steve ALM, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Unbelievable Productions, and Windrider. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now there is actually a new Patreon video, which is a Patreon exclusive, which I've uploaded today, which is about the acoustic treatment of this. We'll call it a studio, so treatment of the studio. So check it out if you are a Patreon. We are joined by a couple of people in Discord, by the looks of things. Steve ALM, one of my patrons, and Travis. So I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Now just let us wonder. Just go ahead and we'll think about it. Just try to figure out what you were doing.
No, I'll tell you what I was doing.
Go ahead.
What have you been doing? Tell us, 10th man.
Instead of coffee, I wanted to vary the experiment, so I made hot tea, and I put it on the table, and when I lifted it up, there wasn't any dent. So I just disproved net force zero.
You are.
So which reference frame did the table or the coffee cup, when it was resting, accelerate? Which one was it?
Well, it didn't. There was no dent. Then I tried it with a coaster underneath the cup, and it still didn't serve as a second reference frame, and it didn't have a dent. So I think I just put a big dent in Zanek's dent topic. That was the craziest thing.
I thought that was Rumpus, but I guess Zanek was his wingman, right?
No, I thought it was Zanek who did the dent, right? Mostly down, Zanek. His time of being here with asking questions that you thought were not that it ever seemed that way, but now it's gotten to a point where all he does is come to try to trick. So he's changed his MO, I guess. I mean, it's pretty obvious to see he's got nothing left, so all he's going to be is a trickster now.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. He's a trickster. He's trying to think. He thinks he has a gotcha on QE.
He owes him $2,000.
No, QE's never going to see a dime of that money.
Yeah, because it's in a different reference frame. I paid you. Yeah, you weren't in that reference frame. I paid you. My, you
That
guys
is
are
pretty funny.
What's that?
I said that is pretty funny, man. The whole reference frame thing.
Yeah, I put it in the Virus's pants that were on his shoulder. You could have gotten it from him, but you missed your opportunity, QE. You had 2 reference frames, and I paid you. That's it.
I could take my pants off and not leave them.
That was so funny.
Oh man, yeah, and not only that, he just doubled down and doubled down. Oh my goodness.
I remember QE. How can you take your pants off and not leave them? Virus very calmly goes, I just put it on my shoulder. That was a funny day. Oh, at least Virus makes you laugh.
Yeah, no doubt. My wife doesn't she doesn't care for, how nasty things get. But she also isn't here to hear all the ridiculousness. Right? A baller, a true baller will never acquiesce to anything. We all know that.
Right. Oh. Well, it's like the image of the kid coming to the mommy and daddy crying, what's wrong? That guy took my ball away. Hasn't left. The whole new meaning. Oh, man, it's quiet here. Where's everybody?
Me, I haven't.
I was on mute the whole time.
Sorry, my bad.
No, I just popped in.
So-
What's up, guys?
Want to hear a funny clip?
Yeah.
Sure.
4 June 2020. Gem Panda, Mr. Bird's Humping Natural Experiment, and Knowledge is Special Belief. Now with his current thesis defense.
Nobody has ever determined the shape or size of the Earth by making an observation of the horizon. We've never done that. We've never, ever, ever, ever done that.
What in the world? Absolutely priceless. Ladies and gentlemen, this bozo's been out here for 5 years defending the disheveled ball-tard spinning space monkey religion and doesn't even know where or how his fairy tale radius came to be. You can't make this shit up, folks. Like I always say, just let them open up their incoherent pie holes and they'll do your work for you.
Nathan is telling you that because of the black swan, we can't know the radius of the Earth, when we have never, ever, ever determined the radius of the Earth by measuring the distance to the horizon. Never, never, no one has ever done that ever in the history of humanity.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
Established where?
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
Show where that's established.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
You're not talking about a water level. You're talking about measuring the radius of the Earth by looking at the horizon. Show where that is established in any way.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
I think
It was never, ever, ever, ever determined by observing the horizon.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
That's it. The guy's never heard of Al-Biruni then. So they got the radius in the first place. Oh dear.
That's wonderful.
That's priceless, man. Words cannot encapsulate the humor of Quantum Eraser.
Yeah, it's got a very strange sense of humour.
It fucking kills me, man.
Oh
That's
my
what makes
gosh.
it dangerous.
He started stating that his phraseologies and catchphrases are copyright or trademarked or whatever. It's a bit like the ball-tard spinning ball space monkey religion. That's trademarked, by the way.
I know.
Did you hear about his experiment he did last night with Betty?
Not an experiment. I'm
He
just
wanted
joking.
to
Go on.
see when he joins a server if people run or people join.
Say that again.
He went on the server to see if where he pops on, are people gonna go there or are people not gonna go there? So I seen his name there, so I joined. So I guess that proved the experiment.
You got to watch that word, Neil.
Yeah, you got to
That's
watch
what I
that word.
When they said
Especially when
experiment, I
referencing
said,
Quantum
"What's your
Eraser.
IV?"
Well, what was the outcome? How many left? How many came?
Well, I joined, and I
What-
don't think
was
they waited
there-
any longer.
Yeah, that was a good clip. I mean, they are reversing every position they have due to the Black Swan.
Yeah, it's got them scrambling.
Oh.
Could have been a good year for Flat Earth if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah,
I
the
think
year
that-
of the ether went the way of the dodo.
The way of the ether went the way of the dodo, did you just say?
Aye, that I did.
I don't know that there was ever any decent arguments for the ether, was there? Unless I'm missing something.
None other than circular reasoning.
Just seemed to be a road that led flat earthers onto the pseudoscience claims that the opposing side that believe in the globe make. So you have flat earthers taking non-science and saying this proves the ether, just like pendulums and gyroscopes do the same for the globe side of the argument.
I think everyone settled in the middle, either or.
Oh my god.
That ether gets
correction,
me
I
because
think.
there's very smart people arguing for that ether.
I think it was. I'm going over my notes here. It was real close, so I attributed the dent to Zanuck, but I think it was Rumpus who said the little dent caused by the table moving up versus the coffee cup moving down. Then Zanuck jumped in that entropy is not a law. So that was a fun day yesterday.
He's retarded.
That's obvious.
Hard to plug shows when you mention them like that, because that show will go out for the majority of people on Saturday, but today's Friday and this show goes out on Sunday. So how am I going to plug it? That leaves me a bit of a quandary. But there we go. I'm going to trim out yesterday's bit. Yeah, yesterday's
That's a good
after
plug right
show.
there.
Yeah, but I can't. When someone hears this, it'll have already gone out. So it's not like an advanced plug. Anyway, that's not. Don't worry about that. Yesterday's show, I'm going to trim out the bit with Zanuck. So it was the bit that was discussing geodetic surveying, and him essentially conceding that the claim they make when they have water levels not being level, curved, and plumb lines moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Can you pop yourself on mute, Neil? The premise is completely debunked when their own surveyors hold true to the Euclidean principles that those two tools utilise. In other words, they are running parallel with each other across the tangent plane that they survey. The fact that they've gone through or jumped through hoops to presuppose that they've figured out a tangent plane has been debunked by the Black Swan. We don't have a tangent anymore. So what are you left with? Well, just a plane, and all of the Euclidean principles that are employed to prove we're on a flat plane are employed by them also. So there is no further claims to be made from the globe trenches that say, no, these plumb lines will actually not, they'll converge if they were put enough distance between them. Well, no, you put an inch between them and they should be converging if you're on a sphere. albeit at a microscopic level, but obviously that gets more and more as you go further and further out. There'd never be an instance where you could operate on a tangent plane, their presupposition that they've drawn a tangent to a spherical surface and then drawn out a flat square that they're actually going to measure. Well, that flat square that they're actually measuring is utilising the tools of Euclidean geometry. So you can't make the assertion that these tools will show a spherical proof in any circumstance, because even their own surveyors don't use them in that manner and they do not demonstrate that. So it was an interesting... to draw that conclusion has taken none of my research. And I mean zero in this particular instance. It is all Bev Try Thinking and Brian's logic. Now they sat me, I say sat me down, they sat me and my audience down, technically speaking, but they sat me down and have gone through the ins and outs of these principles, which I didn't understand. Now I do. So I just want to give massive props to Bev Try Thinking and Brian's logic, who have researched this very well, to the point where they can concisely explain it to a Dumbo like me and I can understand it and then argue it. So if you haven't checked out either of those two presentations by either Bev Try Thinking or Brian's logic, you need to. So you can wrap your head around these principles that prove we're on a flat plane. The global geodesic surveyors are even proving it themselves once they get beyond their presupposition of a sphere Earth. They're then mapping out flat territory with flat tools and Euclidean geometry. They're proving it's flat.
Now you're a lethal weapon.
I was always a lethal weapon.
Did you see the 2 screenshots I put into your Skype, direct Skype account yesterday on what happened with the comment section when we...
No, but do you want me to pop them up? I haven't looked at them, but do you want me to pop them up now?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Just 2, yeah? Do you want me to start with the guy pointing at his head? Oh, it's not a guy, it's Dr. Becky. I'm really sorry.
It's early in the morning for me.
It's very early, Dr.
Funny.
Becky. I'm not in any way questioning your femininity. Go ahead, it's on screen.
Yeah, so the Fast Bite joined in. Hey, go back to your scamming leader, Nathan. Tell your lies there. You flurgs are nothing but this psychopants defending his lies and fake pics. So I responded, Fast Bite, I only have one leader. However, Nathan at Nathan Oakley 1980 YouTube channel is my friend. So I figure I'd give you a shout out. Who has very good questions about the official heliocentric model and its lack of connection to our observed reality while violating natural laws, which are inviolable. Thank you and cheers. And then, of course, Bev joined in. At 10th Man Rising, are you the 10th man from the Flat Earth Debate Show with Nathan Oakley? I listen to you every weekday, 2 p.m. UK time, and YouTube repeated 10 p.m. with extras. You're the best.
I like Bev's sense of humour.
Bev shouts me out. I see you around these parts schooling these people. Then just looking, what's flurfs? And then I go, just looking, you need gas pressure in the first place. Gradient is a delta of gas pressure. And then just looking at flurf. If you want to insult, at least get the spelling right.
Yeah, it's terrible spelling. I love Bev Try Thinking. That plug is just epic, because obviously you've got to be quite careful in comments, because stuff just gets wiped automatically because they don't want you plugging your own channel or commenters plugging your channel, right? So if you're going to do it, you've got to do it the way Bev's done it. Are you the 10th man from Flat Earth Debate Show with Nathan Oakley? I listen every weekday 2 p.m. UK time and repeated 10 p.m. with extras. You can get a better plug than that, right? Thanks, Bev.
It all started because they brought up your name. They plugged you first.
That spelling, though. My God.
Oh, we were laughing so hard when those. I'm still laughing.
I mean, I make spelling errors. Everyone makes spelling errors and typos, etc. occasionally. But when you come across them, you're just like, for me personally, I'm like, oh, how embarrassing. I've spelt that wrong. But when it's riddled with them, you're like, my God, these people are illiterate, telling us how dumb we are.
Look, spelling errors we all make. And if you're making it while you're trying to make a poignant remark, it's one thing. But when you're trying to slam someone some kind of statement because you want to pour salt on them, like they're trying to do to me, and then they make a bad spelling. That's when you jump all over it.
Yeah, Sleeping Warrior used to just put an asterisk next to the corrected word as a reply, and that would be his reply. Just one corrected spelling error. That would be it. All of the points ignored, just to wind them up.
Oh. They get so hostile. I mean, can't even have a back and forth that's genuine anymore. Everyone loses it.
Yeah, it's back to those 5 stages of loss, though, isn't it?
I believe it. I actually am seeing it in chat. I mean, I'm not seeing it verbally because they're not in front of you, but in chat it looks that way.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to get stuck on any stages so long.
Well, if you take the analogy of the doctor, right, where I'm saying the woman's trying to plead for the doctor to try and revive a dead man, her husband. Very sad. Well, in that particular example, the lady going through the 5 stages of loss, I won't go through them again here, there's no need. But imagine a scenario where she speaks to the doctor reasons with her and rationalises. She doesn't accept it, but she walks away and sits back down with her family, and the family say, no, he's still absolutely capable of being revived. No, he's still definitely alive. And you listen to that and go, well, then I must go and reason with the doctor again. And up they get and off they go. And they reason with the doctor again, and the doctor points out how it's absolutely not going to happen. It's not real. It's not a globe. I mean, the man's not going to be revived. And they walk away, having not conceded to the doctor that that's actually the case, and they sit back down with their family again, the lady does. I'm just mixing up the globe heads and this lady in the analogy now. Whoops. Anyway, she sits back down and they tell her again, no, it's all true. And then she turns on the radio and her relatives or distant friends are on TV talking about how the husband's alive and well and doing well, and they're going to set up a new international, I don't know, organisation to dedicate whatever to this guy that's still definitely alive. So the news is saying the guy's alive, the radio saying he's alive, the family saying he's alive. The only person that's actually got any really, anything to say about it is the doctor. He's saying he's dead. Well, that's the scenario that the globeheads have. Their religion has been dismantled. It's no longer tenable. That was the case from 1st Jan 2020. The model became untenable. No longer capable of having the question begged of an R value because it's debunked. Well, at that point, you've got a dead corpse on the table with people gathered around it pleading and screaming and getting very angry because they want that corpse of a dead model to be alive. And after they leave here, specifically here, they go back to the general outside world, and it's like nothing's changed. Everything's still hunky-dory. Globe's still alive. Oh, yeah, we're absolutely still on a globe. Well, that would be absolutely infuriating. So then all it is we just become, us personally, a niggling annoyance, like the doctor. Well, the doctor, just forget about the doctor. Forget about the person who's pointed out how it's not capable of actually happening anymore. Just ignore that person. Tell that person how wrong they are, ridicule that person, and tell them how stupid they are. That's the order of the day, because the general mainstream rhetoric hasn't changed. They've just set up a space division. So you leave here, you leave this place, and go out into the real world, and they're telling you it's real. Space is real, the globe's real, we are actually hurtling at massive speeds through a vacuum. All that stuff is still absolutely prevalent, so it's going to drive you nuts. It would drive me nuts if I was in their position. Sometimes I do have a bit of apathy for them. Empathy, rather.
Wow, you need to put that out just like that.
Hold on. You mentioned something there. You said the radius has been debunked.
That's correct.
Do you mean the Earth has no radius?
That's correct.
Okay, so please do tell me what shapes don't have a radius.
Well, I changed my intro from the shape of the Earth to the nature of Earth, because why would you have to infer or imply a shape of any description beyond your spherical globe belief, that is? Asking me what shapes don't have a radius, I don't see the point either. It doesn't really achieve anything. Your model's got a radius, it's been debunked. Beyond that, who cares?
Whether the shape of the Earth is a square, triangle, a hexagon, makes no difference. It would still have a radius.
So you've just ignored what I've just said. You've completely ignored me. Highlander, this is tedious. Highlander. Hello. You have entirely ignored what I stated. Entirely. And then repeated what you've stated, having ignored my response to you.
The Earth has no radius.
Yes, I've already confirmed that once. Now you're just repeating yourself for the third time. I've already confirmed that. There was a short pause after I said, that's correct. No radius. No shape. Why would we need to assert any shape? Flat's not a shape, it's an aspect.
Highlander, your husband's dead, man.
Yeah, didn't you hear the coroner's report? The black swan is the coroner.
The coroner.
Sometimes the doctor is wrong.
Oh man, I love you right now, Highlander. Guys. Sometimes the doctor's wrong. Sometimes the cold dead corpse can be revived. We have the power and the lightning. May he live again.
Yeah, but when the doctor states statements like that has no radius, then clearly he's not a doctor.
Forget about the doctor. The coroner's report.
It's a metaphor, like saying he has no pulse.
So what shape would the Earth have to be for it to have no radius?
I don't know, and it doesn't have to be. It's neither inferred nor needed. I've just said that's the third time. Maybe talk through it while I repeat it for a third time. Talk through it so you can ignore it for a fourth time, right? For 3 times. No shape is needed to be inferred. Flat's not a shape, it's an aspect. You're the one with the shape you need to defend, not us. So the fact that we've demolished your claim of an R value doesn't mean we need to infer or imply any shape. Flat's not a shape. That's the 4th time.
What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature, not shape, of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now I'm going to do a quick shout out to our latest Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member who's called Stupid Idiot, who's joined at Hyena level, so a very warm welcome to you as the latest channel member, Stupid Idiot. Good to have you. We are also joined by Chocolate Zane, Paul Hall, and 10th Man in G+, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Not from SHAPE Belgium, which stands for Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
It's over there, but no evidence for the distance.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Does two containers prove that, or no?
No, that's twice an affirmation that you require a container.
Okay. But my bad then.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
They rarely do bring that up these days, do they?
If ever. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, it came up for a day or two, mainly because we forced the issue to be discussed, but no, it never gets just naturally doesn't just come up, no.
Right. They'd rather talk about virtual water balls and all that. The horizons on that, supposedly.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius, the presupposition thereof?
That's why the core subject doesn't come up, as they lost their R.
There is
Indeed.
no R value. The coroner is the black swan.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope. It's all density.
If you put the word unscientific, there is plenty of those articles.
Any just so stories for gravity? Yeah, we'd be here all day. Last but by no means.
Discover the gravity particle?
The gravity particle.
Right?
Do you tell me, Arwen, if that's something I need to hear?
Wasn't that suggest like a graviton that you can measure it, and they sometimes catch these unusually strong gravity particles from the other dimension, causing gravity ripples, like this light force being subjected to the realm as the gravity ripple comes past us.
Would that dimension be...
I'm trying to give you some theme music, Darwin.
Pheromone in the background. Okay, it's like medium.
Graviton sounds good.
Go on, despite everything. Go ahead.
Graviton sounds good.
Sounds great, but is the presupposition that's operating in this, you said, other dimension? Is that a conceptual dimension by any chance?
I think it's part of the multi-dimensional concept of like the 10 dimensions and all that, in which energies and presumed particles can be inter-exchanged in order to explain their absence in their models and all that.
The longest yes I've ever heard. Definitely conceptual then.
Okay, yeah.
Did we get any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, we haven't got any. Why do you ask?
Because of the amount of just so stories that are claimed to be science from their side of the argument.
Nah, they just got office jobs and blogs.
Do you know how long it takes for an email to come from another dimension? We're still waiting for it.
Conceptually, it's instantaneous, though.
Oh.
Okay, well, that concludes housekeeping. Just quick question for Highlander. Why didn't you even try and challenge the idea that R's been debunked? You didn't even challenge that. You seemed like resigned to the fact that that's the case.
Because you don't believe the Earth has a shape.
It might have a shape. Hold on.
Even
hold on.
Two-dimensional would have a shape.
Don't divine my thoughts. Yeah? That's not what I said. That's not. No. It might have a shape. I don't know what that shape is, was what I said. Clearly you didn't listen in the pre-show when I made it clear. I don't know. What I assert isn't a shape, though. It's an aspect. The plane that we live on, that's not a shape.
Yeah, flat is just the description of the surface. You guys have a claim to a shape. Don't get that twisted. Highlander. Welcome
Even,
back, by the
even
way.
if, let's say, for example, just for argument's sake, the Earth is flat, right? And we measure out what we've mapped out already, right? And say, right, this is what we've mapped out. This is a shape that we have discovered. It's a weird looking shape, but it would still have a radius.
You could just assign an arbitrary perimeter and give that a radius. Yeah, you could. It's meaningless, though. It's just arbitrary. You're saying, here's the edge of what we've found so far. The radius of that invisible perimeter, a bit like the equator, is X. So what? It's arbitrary.
It's even less arbitrary than the equator. The equator has a a derivation which is rooted in reality and recognized.
Well, it's an average point for the sun's transitional journey throughout the seasons. But is there a line you could draw? No. Still just as arbitrary.
No, what I'm saying is that it's a recognized path in actuality. And you know what I mean? In our reality, the sun does exist. And we have, I guess you could even say a zenith angle would be arbitrary, but it's still a validated thing, right?
I struggle with this word. It's called convention. We've derived a convention of this line on the ground that's imaginary called the equator based on the trajectory and path of the sun. Well, that's a convention that we've derived, but we arbitrarily assign a line to the ground, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, but it's based off of the sun, which does exist, instead of being based off of what we happen to have found at its limits and then creating an R.
I see what you're saying. It's got slightly more validity. At least it's based on something rather than literally an arbitrary perimeter that we draw that has no meaning or significance in any shape. Whereas the sun, at least you can say, well, it's based on this.
Exactly.
Can I ask Highlander a question if he's willing to do a little back and forth?
He's very reasonable today, actually.
Highlander, are you game?
When you go.
Okay. So how does the Earth present itself to you? We say it's obviously and observably flat and motionless. Do you sense that when you look out at the ocean, say from a seashore?
No, I would not say that, because it depends. Like, if you ask someone from Holland, they would say, yeah, it looks flat to me. Yeah, because where they live, the way the land is, there's not very many hills, mountains, what have you, so it looks flat. But where I live, nothing looks flat.
Okay,
so
you're not answering my question. You're not.
The Earth is flat based on one observation from one area, and to do so is dishonest.
Okay, hold on just 1 second, 10th man. Just wanted to let him get to the end of his statement. He obviously wanted to poison the well at the end, so fair enough. I think he has answered.
He was poisoning the well at the end. Highlander, you obfuscated my question. I know your arguments well because you have said many times you live on a hilly area. So that's why I chose the ocean and the seashore on purpose, knowing you would go to the hills and topography of where your house is. Now, let's stay in the confines of the question. Have you ever been on the seashore looking at the ocean and seeing a horizon in the distance? Have you ever done that?
Yes.
In that specific arena, does the Earth present itself to you as flat and motionless?
No, because when you look over the water's not flat and still, is it? It moves constantly.
You're being an idiot right now.
No, he's
Why?
not. No. There's nothing he said that's unreasonable so far. Does it seem flat? Well, from where I am, no. Yeah, he ignored the caveat about being at the ocean. He's been asked if it seems flat and motionless. He's focused on the motionless bit and said no. Why is that being... That's not being awkward. That's being honest. What's wrong with that?
Well, the motionless that I was referring to.
Hold on, 10th. Tell us, Neil. What's 10th man getting at?
He's not talking about the ocean moving. He's saying, how does the world present itself when you look out at it? From the seashore.
I've got to be honest, Neil. I see the question as irrelevant. I mean, I'm obviously tolerating him asking it, but who cares? His perception of it, in terms of what it feels and looks like, one man's opinion.
Well, this is why the back and forth is needed. So let me go on to his response.
Fine, go ahead, 10th man.
Okay, so Highlander, I'm not talking about the motion of the waves. You might have a storm and see a lot of waves. You might be a very calm day and it's hardly anything happening on the water. I'm talking about the Earth spinning, rotating at, say, 1,000 miles an hour if you're at the equator, or a little bit higher, might be 800 miles per hour as it's told to us. Do you sense that the sky is moving above you with clouds and stars and sun and moon, or do you sense the earth is moving underneath you through your senses? That's the motion I'm talking about, not what the water's doing.
That has to be tackled in several parts. As for the clouds and stuff, well, we know they move independently. Yeah, different winds push clouds in different directions. As for the Earth rotating, well, I'm on the Earth, so I rotate with it. Yeah, the speed of the Earth is extremely slow. I mean, we don't measure the speed, the spin of the Earth in miles per hour.
Yeah, we do.
We measure it in rotation.
No, that's...
Yeah?
No. Hold on. Stop. You're conflating two different terms. You're conflating rotational speed with tangential velocity. So RPM versus miles per hour. Rotations versus speed. So yes, you can absolutely qualify. It is very fast. It's 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. The fact that you can qualify that as 15 degrees in RPM doesn't mean it's slow. 1,000 miles an hour isn't slow.
$15 degrees per hour is extremely slow.
Sorry, so you're going to ignore... So you're going to do what you did in the pre-show. I'm going to have to repeat this really slowly 4 more times to you, Highlander. You are conflating two terms. The velocity measured in RPM is not the same as the speed measured in mph. So while you can conflate these two terms to make it seem slow by giving it in degrees an hour, RPM, that doesn't change that in mph, miles per hour, it is claimed to be total nonsense. 1,000 miles an hour that you can't detect in any way, shape or form at the equator. So 10th man's asking you if you can sense this fast, very high speed that's not going to be conflated with RPM to make it seem slow. In miles per hour, third time. Very fast. Please don't conflate it again with RPM. Thank you.
Can I ask something?
But again, the Earth doesn't spin at a very high speed.
So he's going to completely ignore me for a third time.
Can I ask something?
It's faster than the speed of sound at the equator. That's very fast. Now, I assume 4 times in a row you're going to completely ignore that you're conflating RPM with miles per hour. You're going to completely ignore that. You haven't acknowledged it. There's been a pause, and then you've reasserted the same exact claim that's been demolished by rebuttal by me 3 times. You're going to assert it a 4th time, Neil? It's getting tedious. Not Neil, sorry. Highlander.
But so if I take a planet that's twice the size of Earth and it spins at 15 degrees per hour.
Sorry, he is going to ignore me then. He's going to completely ignore me. Highlander, I'm not going to do this half a dozen times with you. I'm going to give you one more chance to acknowledge my rebuttal, because you've gone immediately to degrees an hour again. You're conflating terms. This is going to be the fourth time. Yeah, giving it in rotations, 15 degrees an hour. That's slow. Seemed slow, right? 15 degrees an hour? Yeah, but the edge velocity, I'm going to have to kick you out because you're going to talk through my fourth repetition of this that you've ignored, only to go on to assert it from a different reference frame with a presupposed planet that's spinning also. No, mate, you're conflating two different terms, miles per hour and revolutions. These are different terms that you're conflating to make it seem slow. Now, at the claimed edge velocity at the equator, it's faster than sound. That's incredibly quick. Please don't assert that it's not quick because you're going to give it in revolutions again, because I'm going to have to kick you out. 5 times is too many, mate, for you to just completely ignore it. Unreasonable. Shout out to Unicorn Laser Eyes. I love how globies say it's a globe. Yeah, it's begging the question every single time with every example, Unicorn Laser Eyes. See if we get an acknowledgement for RPM versus MPH. Let's see how we get on.
I've got his his narratives, rotational speed in the Ballbusters chat if you want.
Each degree is 69.7 miles. So times that by 15, Highlander.
Nathan, can I ask you one question?
So you want to kick me off your show because I don't agree with you, Nathan?
Sorry, this isn't an agree-disagree situation. Yeah, these two things, revolutions and miles per hour, are completely different. One gives you the speed in miles per hour, one gives you the revolutions. They're different things. This isn't agree-disagree. You are conflating terms. That's a fact. Now, I appreciate that your pea-brain intellect is too slow to understand what I've just explained to you 6 times. You're going to say that I don't agree? Like I care. It's not agree-disagree, Highlander. You're just a moron. You're conflating two different terms to make something that's very fast seem very slow, giving it in revolutions rather than miles per hour. How many more bloody times? It's just your stupidity and not understanding these terms that you've conflated. Not agree-disagree, moron. Why am I having to get pissed off with this moron telling me I'm wrong? Shall I just kick him out? Yeah, I am going to kick you out 6 times. Is it reasonable, any member of the audience, that I tell somebody something that's fact, absolutely 100% accurate, 6 times, for them to only assert that it's not agree, disagree, maybe I'll just disagree with that? What's the difference between miles per hour and revolutions per minute or per day or per any measure? What's the difference, Highlander? Are they the same?
The difference is how you're trying to look at it.
What, you're trying to look at it as going slow, you describe it in revolutions? Yeah, that's my point. You're trying to look at this as slow, so you're describing it in revolutions. That's my point. Depends how you're looking at it. What, slow? Because you can't feel it. But fast in the rhetoric. Hello?
In fact, it makes no difference how
yeah, it does.
The Earth
they're different terms. No difference. They're different terms. I'm getting tired. You're starting to make my blood boil. Why won't you acknowledge your own stupidity? Why won't you? I'm asking a question, Highlander. Highlander, I'm asking you a question. Highlander, rumpus time. Highlander. Obviously, you can't be heard. I'm talking. Why are you conflating these terms?
Nathan, if you're traveling at a constant speed...
I'm going to kick him out.
Then
I'm going to kick him out. It's not acknowledging my argument. Not acknowledging my rebuttal. 10th man's got him over a barrel. You can't feel anything whatsoever, even though it's claimed to be moving at ridiculously high speeds. What's his rebuttal? If I describe it in revolutions, it's really slow. I point out that he conflates terms 7 times! These people are completely unreasonable. Hey, Sleeping Warrior, good to have you.
That's why I called him an idiot.
Right, because when you think of it as slow, then you can say, "Oh, it's all relative," so you're not gonna feel anything. Part of the trick.
Yeah, the hands on a clock, if you describe them in revolutions, they're moving very, 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 very slowly. Yeah? Extend out that clock hand to 39.59 miles. See how fast it goes then. Very fast is the answer. The edge velocity, the miles per hour. That's what you've got to pay attention to. That's incredibly quick. But they don't like that because we can't feel it.
Would the edges of that
I love that they try to
make
make.
the sound barrier by any chance?
I love how they try to make 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. That's slow. That's nothing. It's like what? That's 1,000 miles per hour.
I have one question for him. He said that he is in mountain, I think. I understood.
Say
But
again?
then you said that you are in mountains or something, that you are not on the beach.
He lives on the hillside where things are, the topography has hills and mountains, etc.
What is giving him opinion or feeling that Earth is global and is he living on hills?
He's gone now, but that's a misrepresentation of the question he was asked. Does it seem flat? Well, no, it's very hilly round by me. He just ignored the caveat the 10th man gave about the beach.
What's giving him opinion that Earth is globe if he's living on hills?
I understand that. It's just that's a different question that he's not going to get to answer because he's obfuscated me 6 times.
Yeah, he will say, because obvious it's globe or something.
Yeah, just an affirmation that he's begging the question and assuming it in the first instance is what I can assume he would do. But as I say, I'm not going to tolerate him 6 times ignoring a rebuttal just to assert the same shite over and over again. It's just not reasonable. But I see your point.
Or that point, Nathan, for example, vacuum, it's not near the gas pressure. Okay, you debunk that. Okay, that's all right. Now show me the dome. And I have an answer for that. Can you wait for me? I will take my people. We will buy rockets and everything. I have some ships to buy and some more people. We will organize all that and we'll show the dome.
Exactly.
I love it.
In the meantime, we'll
or map,
we'll
or
get
maps,
universal.
you know.
In the meantime,
make
we'll
maps,
get.
you know.
In the meantime, we'll get
In 1
universal.
week we will make maps.
No, but I like the way Nathan says it. See, the gas pressure thing, the container's a necessary antecedent.
So what we need next is Universal Studios to have their intro showing a dome for the next 50 to 60 years before we push it as actually the case by proving it potentially with a Just So story and some rocket ships. But in the meantime, we need to, soften people up to that idea with lots of intros that show domes. Just like they did with the globe.
Maybe it's guilty of some flat earthers who are making models. Maybe that is guilty thing.
So the triggering word dome. We must have containment to have gas pressure. It's a necessary antecedent. Dome. Dome.
Show Hawkins. You'll say now, Nathan, show me the container. Okay, how?
Right.
You want?
Oh, I can do that. Go outside and you experience. I use their argument. Go outside and experience gas pressure. The necessary antecedent to have that gas pressure is containment. Without the container, there can be no pressure. So while I can't show you the container, it must be there. It's a necessary antecedent for gas pressure.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the lie. It's a matter that you need to show the truth. Do you understand?
Yeah, okay.
Doesn't matter if this is lie, vacuum. You need now to show the truth to people, not.
I see.
Not
I
anybody
haven't got a big enough ladder.
Nathan shows it every intro.
They're all
right,
globes in the
that.
intro. So apart from the swans.
Nathan, if all the flat earthers contribute a ladder to you, you still wouldn't have enough of a ladder. So
Just got what Arwin was saying. So Arwin saying the standard of proof for them is enough or sufficient. My intro's good enough for them, right, Arwin? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Shout out to Unicorn Laser Eyes. So Highlander, no proof of spin. Thanks. Yeah, just an argument about conflation of terms between RPM and MPH. That's all we've got in terms of proof of spin in that regard.
So,
anyway.
So the reason I wanted to have a one-on-one with Highlander was on all the other shows, he would always reference the hillside he lives on. So how could it be flat? So I wanted to take him to a place where there were no hillsides and see if he would still say.
If you're born in Amazonian forest, how you can know that it's globe?
Well, that's my point. If all he's doing is assessing what he lives on based on his hillside house, what would he say if he had a house on the beach? And basically that was the only thing I wanted. Would he be honest and say, well, if I have a house at the beach, it looks flat? Okay, so we're talking about topography here, right? But
I'm also interested in that Biruni guy. He calculated the R.
Calculated, eh? Shout out to Retro Bill, who super chats me with no message, just gives me money. Really appreciate the support, Retro Bill. Times are tough. Thank you very much for the super chat.
I got something. You know, they can't, 4 or 5 years ago, they can pull those magic tricks. Now they can't.
Spot on. Yeah, we've lifted the veil, peeked behind the curtain, and then, like Toto, just yanked it back and shown everyone the guy behind the curtain with an R value that doesn't work and why it doesn't work. But we're not just standing there showing. It's not enough to just pull back the curtain. That was done in 2014. Pulling back the curtain, that's not good enough. You've got to pull back the curtain with stacks and stacks of documentation showing where their presupposition is wrong. Now, ordinarily, with any other argument, demonstrating that you've begged the question and presupposed your outcome is enough to demonstrate that the argument's fallacious. In this arena, you've not only got to show that the argument is fallacious, but also that the presupposition itself has got to be debunked. Because that's the level of zealotry that we deal with. It's not enough to just prove that it's a fallacious form of logic to just assume your outcome. No, that's not good enough. No. You've also got to prove beyond all doubt that the presupposition is also wrong. Prove it wrong, as opposed to just prove it's an assumption.
Hey, Highlander.
Go on.
Like,
hold on, Chocolate. Just one sec. Go on, Chocolate. Go on, Sleepy Mario.
Is Highlander still here, or is he gone?
I told him I'd kick him out if he didn't at least concede that he was conflating terms. And then he went on to say it was agree, disagree. And I was like, nah, I'm not having it. 6 times is too many.
It's a shame I only joined because I wanted. Highlander's not been on for a long time and Righteous isn't on, so it was my opportunity. And Nathan, you've ruined it for me again, Nathan. I wanted to speak to Rumpus yesterday and you ruined that for me. Oh, woe is me.
I'm sorry it gets to the point where they demonstrate fundamentalist religious zealotry. I know on other shows they'll let that slide. Me, I'll just pin them here and not let them get away with conflating terms. Because what do I do at that point? If I just let that... What would you do, Anthony? You let that slide, what happens next? We're into arguing about the fact that it is actually quite slow and we shouldn't feel it? Is that where it should have gone?
Well, no matter what you do, you get criticised. If you allow them to peg the question and run with their nonsense, you get criticised for not nipping it in the bud. And if you nip it in the bud, then you get me moaning at you for not letting me kill them again. So it depends on which group of the discussion you want to piss off. If it's John's side, you might do one thing. If it's my side, you do the other thing. You can't win.
I can, I don't care. I'll do whatever I like.
It's delicious when they start contradicting themselves and you pummel them, Nathan. It's brilliant.
To quote, as Mr. Oakley would say,
hold on, Travis.
Well,
Go ahead, Chocolate.
we presuppose a ball. Well, that's how we figure out it's a model. We presuppose it. End quote. Professor Phil Bell.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't
nice
credit the guy.
though.
I got that.
That was a beautiful little snippet.
I got it from Mind of God. I didn't credit him. I realised that when I woke up this morning, and then I've just run out of time. I should have credited him, but he's getting a better plug now. So go and subscribe to The Mind of God, who was I didn't watch that on Phil Bell's channel. He trimmed it out in a slightly elongated version. I just took that juicy bit, kept a little bit of context to either side of it, and then just slapped that up with an intro and outro. I was like, that's good enough.
yeah, that's good. The part I love is that we've been dealing with these ballers for how long, right? And how many of them have come in here and said, we are not presupposing, this is verified, this is what it is. And then this guy comes in, Mr. I put satellites in space, and says, yes, we presuppose a ball. well, okay. Well, welcome to the party, pal. I mean, that's what you do. You presuppose. That's the whole problem. But then the weird thing with that, though, is he's okay with saying we have to presuppose it, but he's the one who's also claiming he's putting things in space.
Yeah, but you gotta understand that.
But I think I know where it's coming from, though. I think that he's literally on the spot just demented one step little further and actually, after all this time, kind of forgot what presupposing really is, what the consequences of it is. I think he literally just
No, he didn't. No, he justified it. No,
did he delete the video?
Hold on. He justified it. He said that in science, that's what you do. You come up with a presumption of... He didn't actually say, I'm paraphrasing, I'm giving it more accurately so I don't convolute it further, but he said you're making a hypothesis when you make this model. It's like, well, no, your assumption in a hypothesis is the presumption of cause that you're going to validate with experiment. Well, if your assumption is R value and sphere Earth, how are you going to vary and manipulate that to validate it in an actualization of the hypothesis? That would be an experiment. The answer is you can't. It's pure pseudoscience. That's what models are. Models are pseudoscience. And that's what he's got. He's got the formulation of an assumption into a model that he then declares as reality. And I think you're right, Owen, he's one step further along. Well, yes, of course, it's totally reasonable to beg the question. We know we're on a sphere. And that's my point when I say that it's not enough to just point out that they're using fallacious reasoning. He's now using it as a defence. Just like Mr. Sensible. Well, at best you've debunked the radius. Like, that's a defence. No, mate, that's you one step further on to depression on your little 5 steps of loss. Because that's
but notice both those quotes are from people that are I would say sort of, at least to my standards, are pretty new in this argument. Because I mean, that's the first thing I heard from Mr. Sensible was that. So I was like, wow, okay, that's how you started this debate from the gate. At best, we debunk the R. Okay, and then this guy.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Well, before you do, I'm just going to shout out Flat Earth Travolta, with Saturday Night Fever as an icon, says, all they do is beg the question, staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive. Nah, the globe's dead. There's no giving it CPR.
To me, it's a bunch of jive talking.
Who was I was interrupting somebody when I shouted out the super chat, but thank you all the same, Flat Earth Travolta. Did you want to present something, Paul? You've got something up.
Yeah, I got something up. It's from ThoughtCo. A model is used for situations when it is known that the hypothesis has limitations on its validity. So if your hypothesis has limitations, then you just introduce a model. That's what you do.
Is that what they were telling us when they were all these years when they were saying, well, we have a model.
Yeah, we have limitations.
That's what I hear. Oh, we have hello. Oh, so you have limitations on your hypothesis. Well, welcome to the club.
Yeah, but that was his justification. He's saying this is the formulation of hypothesis when you design a model with an assumption, in this case the R value. Well, their assumption isn't going to form a hypothesis. A model's made when you have a limitation on your hypothesis. His justification is just incorrect.
Yeah, I wonder what part of the hypothesis could we fantasize over that might have limitations to it. Maybe that gas pressure without somewhat holding it in. That might be a limitation. So we have to model it with a bit of maths, and we'll call it the Boltzmann formula, and we can calculate it instead of actually demonstrating it. They haven't got any demonstration for gas pressure without a container, but they'll calculate it, and morons will think maths proves things. No, it doesn't.
Nathan, they never thought that a show like yours would actually delve into the content of their priest in written form and audio recorded segments of their priest. And when through your show and others who contribute these clips and references and citations of what their priests say, it just proves the unscientific way they've gone through. And they don't have a scientific method for anything. They have an unscientific method for everything.
Of course, what Mr. Oakley will say is that we presupposed what the Earth is, the shape of the Earth. Well, yes, because that's how models are made. We presupposed what the Earth is.
That's a great clip.
That guy interrupted me. I'm pissed.
Well, he actually proved your point. So he was your hostile witness.
I'm having fun. I'm having fun,
man.
chocolate.
Yeah, I know. It is fun.
A recorded
Oh
troll.
yes, we presuppose. Oh yeah, thanks. Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, I told you
love
when
it.
I told you when I was sitting next to the highly educated business owner who was a dentist who had family members, brothers, sisters, and nephews who are. Hey, now
Hey, Anthony,
Riley's
can you
doing
pop
it.
yourself on mute?
me?
I think. Unless that was...
I didn't hear you say who.
Is he talking to us?
Hey, Riley, get on mute.
Go back to sleep, warrior.
I want to hear his conversation.
Sorry, was I
Hot
doing
mic.
what I shouldn't have
Hot
done?
mic, hot mic.
Man, yeah, you were a live hot mic.
What? So you could hear the clip I was listening to?
Yeah, you were disturbing me in the middle of my sentence.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how that's happened.
All right. Anyway, so this highly educated person looks to me after I go through the scientific method and gravity and disequilibrium, all the stuff we talk here. I just had a good half an hour, I think, with him. And this other guy next to him was listening. And the educated guy looks at me and says, "Where'd you get your schooling from? You're highly intelligent."
You should have told.
I said, "I'm a farmer. I just went to high school." He goes, "No way. You know too much. You know more than my family members who are going to universities." And it was such a compliment he paid. And I shared that story that one time, and I share it again now. To say, when you come to this show and Nathan's got his foot on it tight, meaning he won't let something be, going on if it's conflating, like you saw with Islander and all this. It's become a very educational place where we go and take what they say is science and we dissect it every day and we find out how unscientific their ways are. And then through that, we find out what real science is. So kudos to everybody here who is keeping it true.
Well, I gave props in the pre-show. I mean, I'm so privileged to have people like Sleeping Warrior, Arwin, Bev Try Thinking, everybody on the panel, including Chocolate with all his quotes. This stuff just comes to me. I've hardly got to do anything in terms of research. So I just shout out people like Bev and more recently Brian, because that's work, that's graft, and they're just giving it to me. Same with Quantum Eraser. Biggest shout out to him. The amount of hours he sat down with me and explained things over and over again while I'm like, I don't understand. That stuff is people's time dedicated to me understanding better. And it's like, what am I giving back in return? Well, I'm off the show. People give me money to do the show. So it's like, I can only say thank you to all of the people who literally do the hard work and just present it to me at my doorstep, merely because I've got a platform for them to present it to others on.
Yeah, well, you can pay us back by just continuing your typical trademark Nathanian mauling and live dissecting of baller idiocy.
I think the best part is the progression, right? Because it's been the argument is quite different now than when it was the Isle of Man, let's say, right? When there was a lot more begging the question, a lot more just presupposing and allowing of it. I mean, imagine if we were still arguing how much of a boat is missing at, 30 miles or whatever. Like, it's just like the arguments are so precise now. Like, it's almost, it's like a different era, to be honest. When I think about it, that's the way I see it. Like, if you listen to the earlier shows, it's almost like a completely different show.
That reminds me, Chocolate. So right. I'll just shout out Rakir. Then, if Sleeping Warrior's around, I want to talk to him about Hank Hill. Shout out to Rakir Life. Yes, I'm doing all good. Thank you for asking. How are you doing, Rakir Life? Hope you're okay. Sleeping Warrior, you around? If you're not, I'll just tell the story anyway. So, Hank Hill came in, and he explained a rendition of the story you told me in terms of changing the path of the debate. And I had to say to him, look, credit to you, because if it wasn't for that argument that you stuck around to actually get your point made on, and then got obfuscated, and then later it was picked up on by Sleeping Warrior that the point did get addressed just 40 minutes later, and it took a bit of editing to actually present that to an audience. Therefore, you know, I'm going to, or did, credit Hank Hill with the change in direction. I know it was you that pointed it out, Sleeping Warrior, hence me involving you in this discussion, but he came in and actually, I laid that out for him about a week ago. I didn't know if you were aware of that, but I didn't know if Hank Hill realised how influential his little discussion, that at the time he was just pissed off. He's like, well, I didn't get to make my point. I'm hanging around. I've got a job to do. I'm here to make my point, and I'm not getting to make it. And then, you know, that was just frustration for him at the time. Now that's turned into the debate taking a completely different path. Yeah, that's right, like, I agree. I know.
Yeah, there's been a few occasions where they've done that exact thing. Like I remember when the rumpus was cornered. It was something to do with the elevation of the lighthouse. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was to do with the terrain around the lighthouse. Nathan, you might remember it better than me, but Rumpus was getting absolutely pummeled in the corner, and we started to apply it. So rather than let the point just wander off into obscurity and Rumpus weasel his way out of being cornered, we just held him in the corner and pummeled him. I can't remember exactly what it was, Nathan. You'll probably remember. But yeah, turning points are there. Let these guys hang themselves. And when they do hang themselves, I mean, if I make a mistake, I get crucified. So why shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's where the toast to the fire thing came from.
Yeah, I'm just making something to eat, so I'm going to have to drop for a minute while I go sort food out.
But yeah, this is, in terminology terms, when we say hold his toes to the fire, I know that's a fairly common phrase, but that's what we're referring to. So back before then, people's toes didn't get held to the fire. They'd get away with conflating terms, and then we'd move on, and you know that point would get forgotten about, regardless of how much someone wanted to keep that point till it at least had a conclusion made. As long as it was obfuscated at least once, the subject would move on. Well, now that's not tolerated, as Sleeping Warrior just pointed out. If we make a mistake, even a grammatical error, you know, that will be held to task for years, literally years. So when it comes to them making completely fallacious reasoning statements, no, we're not going to let that pass. When it's genuinely fallacious or genuinely wrong, why wouldn't you? Well, move on, just because they've made absolute complete clowns of themselves here. No, hold them to task until they admit it. And the problem they have is they don't want to admit it because they're going through the 5 stages of loss. Next stage, depression. As soon as they actually say it, even that Phil Bell guy on that clip I just played, he seems down, man. He seems glum.
Seems very mad.
They say it's presupposition. Well, it is. Absolutely. How dare you point out how much we beg the question. Well, thanks for that. I can see how you would be very annoyed in your tone while saying it.
I can't wait for Rumpus to come here so I can ask him about that.
You was quick to point out again that Sleeping Warrior had Rumpus over a barrel in like show 80. Are you going to apply R? Yes, I am. Isn't R just a presupposition that Earth's a sphere? Yes, it is. So check out YouTube's channel. He's got a clip of that exact from debate number 80 or thereabouts. He was quick to point it out on that very clip that we're discussing with Phil Bell. So Ute's comment was, yeah, this is old news. You know, the fact that they admitted to it being a presupposition was very well established a long time ago. And it was, like I say, it's not enough to just point out their fallacious reasoning. You've actually got to debunk and make the use of this presupposition untenable, which is where the black swan comes in. We've made the use of the R value, can't justify it anymore, it can't be used, it's an untenable argument. You can't do geometry without geometric horizons and tangents. So, you know, we've made it unusable. Not just pointed out that it's fallacious reasoning and they're just begging the question, which they even admit to, because they just say, yeah, well, we know it's a sphere. Well, no, you can't know it's a sphere. Your way of deriving R, Al-Biruni. Let's just play that clip again, shall we? Shout out to Quantum Eraser for sending me this clip, which if I can find it, hopefully.
This is good.
Was it in Ballbusters? I believe it was.
The Alberoni one.
Yeah, we'll just play out that.
Yeah, I think it's a Ballbusters.
Yeah, I've got it.
For June 2020, Gem Panda, Mr. Bird's Humping Natural Experiment, and Knowledge is Special Belief, now with his current thesis defense.
Nobody has ever determined the shape or size of the Earth by making an observation of the horizon. We've never done that. We've never, ever done that.
What in the world? Absolutely priceless. Ladies and gentlemen, this bozo's been out here for 5 years defending the disheveled ball-tard spinning space monkey religion and doesn't even know where or how his fairy tale radius came to be. You can't make this shit up, folks. Like I always say, just let them open up their incoherent pie holes and they'll do your work for you.
Nathan is telling you that because of the black swan, we can't know the radius of the Earth, when we have never, ever determined the radius of the Earth by measuring the distance to the horizon. Never. No one has ever done that ever in the history of humanity.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
Established where?
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
Show where that's established.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
You're not talking about a water level. You're talking about measuring the radius of the Earth by looking at the horizon. Show where that is established in any way.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
I think it was never, ever determined by observing the horizon.
Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni.
Yeah, this is dude.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, it's getting freaky now.
This dude called Alberuni.
Why didn't any of his bosses correct him?
They probably don't even realise themselves.
That had me dying when I heard that yesterday. Alberoni. That is crazy.
Yeah, again, I'm very grateful.
Smeagol.
Thanks to Quantum Eraser. Shout out to him for sending me that clip. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it sounds like Smeagol. Never.
I think he's just got the words reader from, like, Wikipedia or something. You can get it to just say the name if it's a weird spelling. I don't know who introduced him to Audacity, but he loves it.
That was pretty funny, though. Quantum Eraser, man. I'm telling you, it's the delivery.
But I'm almost certain I've heard Gem Panda arguing for dip angle. So clearly he's just argued an argument that he doesn't understand the root of, or the historic root at least, in the form of Alberuni.
I had no idea who that guy was until yourself.
Yeah, don't forget when you get them in direct conflict with each other, they'll just completely obfuscate it, or they'll get to a very narrow part within their point and then say, well, I suppose you could see it that way. And nobody actually remembers what the original point was. And the original point will be really something simple, like straight doesn't mean curved, for example. Gas pressure needs containment, for another example. These simple points that they basically argue or debunk their model, they start arguing about the minutiae within their begging the question argument, and then people forget about the bigger point. They do it all the time.
Yeah, and as long as they can keep you on the red herring obfuscation or the strawman argument, or as long as humanly possible, and if it's ever attempted to get it back onto the track of the actual point, then instant obfuscation will ensue in terms of Discord rumpusing and talking over your opponent, because that's the last thing they want. They don't want you to get back onto the point to labour it. They want to stay on the obfuscation tactic, regardless of whether or not they win or lose the red herring argument, because it doesn't matter to them. That's why they talk complete nonsense when they're making those red herring arguments. Like talking about cups making indents on tables. That's something that's needing to be focused on. So it's not focused on net force zero, no acceleration, no proof, no scientific evidence of gravity. That's what you need to focus on. Well, they don't need us to focus on that. They need us to focus on the minutiae of whether or not a coffee cup will leave a dent in a table. Because that load of old nonsense is going to prove what exactly?
Well, don't you know, Nathan, that they invented the coaster because of that?
Coaster?
The coaster.
Yeah, the coaster.
Yeah,
You go
to prevent net force zero.
That's right. It's a net force zero coasters. I thought it was for the ring of water or beer. I didn't know it was for the dent.
Because that force could be too strong. You know?
That's why coasters are cork.
Yeah, you've just not got the skill, Neil. Just don't try it. I was there too. I was thinking about corkscrews and loop-de-loops and how I could drop a good pun in, and I didn't have it. Neither did you, but I knew I didn't, and you didn't. No, you didn't.
Pardon?
Well, there goes Anthony.
The minute I do, I'll tell you.
Thanks for that, Anthony.
I know you
goes again.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, we are during this live broadcast of Flat Earth Debate.
Mute.
Your mute button doesn't work. Get a coaster in between it.
Do you have like an Alexa mute or something? Like, what are you doing?
I know what happened. Somebody's something's updated and it's changed all my settings to a microphone. Apologies, it's my fault.
Yeah, we know. I wasn't blaming the 10th man.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we do hear you. Should we be hearing you though?
No, we don't hear you.
Right now, but for some reason, the levels are not bouncing up and down when I'm talking. But you can hear me. But if I mute myself now, you won't be able to hear me, will you, Nathan? Cocksucker Womble.
For the audience's benefit, what I need now, right? We're at the 55th minute of the show, right? And in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to be asking an audience that is yet to be watching the show to stay tuned for this extremely riveting cliffhanger that I'm going to leave the show on, right?
Me playing around with my sounds.
Yes, just that's going to encourage everybody to stay tuned, isn't it?
Just stay tuned for the next 10 minutes. You'll get me saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?"
So riveting.
Will Anthony remain on mute? Stay tuned. Find out.
Okay, there's a few more Discord participants, so we might just salvage a cliffhanger outro. We'll see.
All right. So come on, Discord.
What we could do for a cliffhanger outro, we can remind people that Rumpus and Sly are both now very, very interested in Bev Trithinking's water level experiment testing, observation, call it what you will, because they both realise that they're in a conflict. They both realise that the water level must curve on their model, but if it does curve over a short distance and it's measurable, then we've got to be able to measure it. And they're arguing why we can't measure it. And it's like, welcome to Flat Earth, guys. Not arguing that it's there.
Hold on. They're arguing amongst each other why they can't measure the curve of a water level.
Yeah, so Sly Sparking says, regardless of the shape of the Earth underneath the water level, the water remains level. So it can be peaking and troughing up and down, and the water will remain level. But then I say, oh, great, so does that mean it's not curving? And he goes, well, it does curve, but it's still level regardless of the shape of the Earth. I was like, right, so if we know what if we have that reference datum point, whichever way around it is, we should be able to measure it, shouldn't we? And they start arguing for why they can't measure it. And then we say, but hang on a minute, aren't we meant to be curving? And if we can't measure it, how do you know that we're curving? And the ultimate answer, of course, is they just assume it or demand that we accept that we are curving, but they can't demonstrate it.
Yeah, they presuppose it, and they demand that we accept their presupposition. Hey, Brandon, by the way, good to have you. Hey, Brandon, can you hear us?
Hey, sorry. Hey, Nathan. Yeah, I just popped in. I didn't realize you guys were live. I was coming to see what's going on.
Yeah, just doing a live show. Or we were until you said
Cool.
that. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. If you are watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream or the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. As I say, unfortunately, if you're watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
About it till now.
Yeah. Well, he didn't even realize it was a body. He's got the camera in the car, and there's a fucking skeleton there, kind of thing. And he's like, "Whoa, it's got hair on it and everything. No skin, but hair." Cool.
What's going on?
Cool.
This is definitely not broadcast worthy.
I was just describing the video. I don't know how you guys heard it, but you heard it, and it's about a guy called. His channel's called Adventures with Purpose. It's nothing to do with flat Earth. It's about a deep sea diver that recovers broken and lost cars that are in the bottom of lakes and rivers and all that. And sometimes he pulls them out with bodies in them. And he had a live stream the other day where he pulled a car out the river or whatever it was. There's a fucking skeleton in the driver's seat that he hadn't spotted, and he's like, whoa, please, quick. His fucking body, the bloke had gone missing 12 years ago, and there he was in his fucking driver's seat. It's really interesting. Adventures with Purpose.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know how you heard it though, because I didn't realize that the sound was passing through.
No, once I finished the outro, obviously I just turned the sound back on.
No, not then. Earlier on when Tenth was talking and he said, "You're interrupting me," and I was like, what? How's that working?
Yeah, these things happen.
Hey, sorry about that, Nathan. I didn't mean to pop in on your show there. I was just cruising around.
No issue whatsoever. It's all good.
Cool.
Long time no see, Brandon.
Yeah. I don't come in here very often. I was talking to QE last night. Did he release his video about Al Bruni?
Hold on, Chocolate. Did he release his video about what? Sorry?
Al Bruni. About Gem and Al Bruni.
I did. I released the clip, so he gave me a clip. I don't know if he's doing a video about it as well. Maybe he's also going to do a dedicated video. It's worth it.
No, it was the clip I heard too. Yeah, it was funny. I was in the Discord at that time, arguing with Kosho about that. Sending him photos of Al Bruni, an article that described the very issues with Al Bruni's measurement, being that you couldn't measure the horizon due to refraction. Reliable. And those guys are just in complete denial because the end calculation that you use after you've identified where the horizon is doesn't include determining where the horizon is or a distance. But you need the distance to the horizon to get your point on your triangle.
Right. You need the presupposition. They just do what Phil Bell did. And justify, well, of course we beg the question. Well, how have you got the measurement? Well, Al Bruni.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty funny. I mean, that one's a tough one for them to deny.
Yeah, they used to assert it as a proof. We used to hear all about dip angle measurements, did we not, Sleeping Warrior?
Yep. All the time.
Amazing. They assert their weakest arguments as though they're a strength. It's a really interesting tactic. Same goes for the edge. Same goes for asking us to prove a dome. Where their weakest arguments lie, where their actual attacks on us come from. That's proving true time and time again.
Huh, that's exactly how politicians in the States operate.
Funny, it used to be the body of science,
I'll pop the
Nate.
pictures that I sent him yesterday in the chat here.
Yeah, I've got something that will help with the sextant. Let me share my screen. I was just curious about something, so I was looking it up. Of course, Jessie, now Lily wants me to play with her. This is a optical level transit, I guess is what you would use to determine if something is level, right? Which I would have to use to determine, if something's below the dip angle or whatever. Look at the accuracy of this one up here. You see it? Quarter inch at 100 feet. Now, if you're measuring something at several miles, what is the accuracy of that? How far would that be off, you think? Anybody know? And this says up to 200-foot range is the max range on this one. Anybody
Hey, notice on the bottom, it includes a plumb bob.
Oh, yeah, I see that. So if the max range on this one is 200 feet and the leveling accuracy is within a quarter of an inch, so that means wouldn't that be exponential as it goes out with the angle? Am I misunderstanding that correctly? Please explain. Help me understand this.
It's a squared function. It's not exponential.
Do what now? Say it again.
Squared function. It's not exponential. I get called up on that by QE, so I just thought I'd call you on it. Why not?
Oh, no, I don't. So what does that mean? So translate that for me. If it's a square function.
Exactly as it sounds. It's just not an exponential increase.
Okay. So for every 200 feet, that would be a squared function. So it would go from at 200 feet, it could be accuracy could be half inch more and then you get 300 feet. It's another. It keeps doubling. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I couldn't quite hear what you said, but yes, I think so.
Okay. So if they're using a sextant to measure the dip angle, their accuracy is way off if they do long distance, right? Would it be way off potentially?
I don't know if I heard you right. I think based on the videos I've seen, they use the sextant to set a right angle to get
56, 68,
a star or a luminary. There goes Riley again. Why is it every time I talk, Riley? Just my day, Riley. You and me, Riley. Come on, mano y mano.
It keeps on muting.
This is the moment where he realizes.
Hello, Sleeping Warrior.
Riley.
Tony, you keep unmuting.
Oh shit.
Hold on, let's not lose track. Hold on. Hello. Oh god, I can't even get us back on track because he's interrupting me. What I'm going to do. Okay, so we're talking about establishing 90 degrees with the tangent point with the
I'm on
sextant.
fucking mute. How can that be?
Jesus wept.
Riley, shut up.
But look, the icon is not on mute, right? Now it's on mute and you can hear me.
Yeah, that's a little weird. Because the icon is on mute. We can still hear him.
It auto unmuted. Maybe it's set
What
to
the hell?
voice detection.
It doesn't even matter. It looks muted, and we can still hear him.
I don't
That's
understand
crazy.
what's going on here. I'm sorry, guys. It's not me.
See, it's auto unmuted.
If it's not you, who is it?
I was going to say that's a form of denial right there.
If it's auto muted, what's the point of mute? It can anytime you speak, it comes off mute. So what's the point?
It's somehow
I don't know,
in
figure
the
that one out.
software for
Back to dip angle.
somehow in the software for Google Plus. Occasionally, a guest will join. They won't know why, but they won't have to pepper the mute button or take themselves off mute. When they talk, it'll unmute their line, and therefore, when they're not talking, they don't cause feedback. But there's no function to actually turn it on or off, and there's no way I can see of introducing it for my line. But just occasionally, it must be buried somewhere in the software for Google Hangouts, this function, and it just pops up occasionally. It's no reason, just does it occasionally. It's just an anomaly that I've noticed over the years, just one of those things. Anyway, right, sextant, dip angle, 90 degrees.
Okay, so the way Paul said it sounded weird, but in the usage of a sextant, you must have a true 90 degrees, and where you are when you take your marks, if that's 10 foot above the level of the ocean water, that's the dip angle you must minus when you go look into the books, because that's how it has to be measured at zero at sea level. So if you're 10 feet above sea level on your sailboat and you sight a star and it says 65 degrees between 0 and 90 on the right angle, then you go to your books and you have to minus that dip angle. So you got to get to 0. So you minus 10 feet. It's all in the book. So then you can get a correct reading. So that's the dip angle I understand. I don't know what Paul is saying.
Yeah, what you're minusing off, they're measuring and extrapolating out R from.
Well, this is developed. This thing is supposed to be measuring level. This is what they use for surveying, right? But look at, my point was showing the accuracy. So if you're trying to measure the dip angle using, what a surveyor uses, the accuracy is way off. The further it goes out, the more inaccurate it becomes. That's what I'm trying to make a point of. So if a surveyor is actually using it, it's only good for a short distance. It's not good for long distance. So wouldn't that apply to the geodesists or the whatever you call it, the globe surveyors, whatever you call it? Can't think of the name.
No, they just map out a tangent plane with the presupposition in place. So no, they're not actually doing any measurements to get the tangent plane. That's just based on their presupposition. They do a little dance to get there, but doesn't involve measuring dip angle as far as I'm aware.
Okay, I was just wondering though. I guess my point is, you're looking through one of these out to see, okay, is it below level? Well, it's the accuracy that's way off. So you really you can't really use it to determine if what you're seeing out there is below level or not. I guess that's my point.
Paul, my neighbor had a transit with a laser, and I had to make a pad for a swimming pool on my other property before I moved to this one. And it's 40 by 60 pad. And it was a doughboy pool. So it was real simple to use. You put your stakes out on the four corners, you get your laser, and of course the ground was falling away at many areas. And I set the one mark, and the laser went on and started putting its mark on the stakes. Then I would tie a string to that, and it was very accurate, because when the pool was done and the water was filled up, it was level to each part of the pool liner. So maybe greater distances need better equipment. I don't know.
No. The tools that are being used by the geodetic surveyors are no different. They're working on Euclidean principles when they map out this. I think Bev said it was a quarter of a mile square, and that quarter of a mile is assumed flat, so that all of the Euclidean principles can still be applied. That means water levels are level on that quarter of a mile that they're mapping out. So, no.
No, I agree with
Nathan,
that.
can I add
They're
something?
doing.
Yeah, was that Rakia? Go ahead.
Yeah, can I add something to this?
Go ahead.
When you use a water level, any type of water level, the accuracy of the water level gets greater the more distance you use. You understand what I'm saying? When you use a small, like you're doing a water level over 1 foot, any little fraction of not having that water level in the bubble, or however you're going to say it, makes that off a lot in that 1 foot. If you're doing it over a mile or 100 feet, the accuracy of the water level is better. The opposite is true for any other laser tool or any other man-made tool. The accuracy goes down as you go further out. Does that make sense?
Although, that said, when I've used a spirit level, just a normal spirit level, when I've used a tiny one, you can get it wrong really easily, whereas if you use a really long one, you tend to get it wrong less often. I mean, that's just in my own experience, but is that contradicting what you've said?
No, that's right. The further distance you go out with a water level, that more accurate that water can be.
Right.
I'm saying? Yeah, that sounds like what you just said, Nathan. Yeah, pretty much.
No, because Raki is talking specifically about a water level. So you've got a pipe, like Bev showed yesterday, and each end's showing the equalisation of the water. when he moves
Oh,
it
you're
up
just
or down.
talking about the regular spirit level. I got you.
I'm talking about, ignore what I've said. Pay attention to Rakia, not me. Right, so he's talking about an actual water level, and he's saying if you had a mile-long water level, the accuracy would be improved with the greater distance.
I guess the whole point is there's no human error in water level. That's natural, right? When you fill a ditch or a pond or a lake or whatever up, it's going to naturally find its level. Human, when they make a machine to, to prove level, or they're using a machine or a tool to prove level, there's inaccuracy in that. You understand?
They taught us this in school at age 6, second grade. One of the first things they teach you, they present you with a load of different containers and ask you to draw the water line in each of the containers. I remember it very well. You have to draw them all horizontal. That's the purpose of the test, to see if you understand how water level works. I remember it very, very distinctly.
The best way to describe it is if you could humanly possible, make a pipe that's perfectly level, like to the nth degree. It's not possible, but if you just theoretically think of that. And then you raise it 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch on one end, and it's a mile long. That water will flow away from that rise. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't take. That's how accurate water is. It's no way around it.
Yeah, that's why it's being used as for that function, to
Every
provide
day.
you with a horizontal line, i.e. flat.
This is where they go into
guys are
funny
using
words, though, isn't it? Because they have to redefine the word level to be a curve, which is why we said why Bev had the argument over Euclid with Rumpus, because Rumpus says that level can be a curve, but Euclid defines it as perpendicular, vertical and straight, horizontal and straight. He literally uses the word straight. So unless you're going to argue against one of the greatest mathematicians ever, and let's not forget their position with regards to maths, then you're going to have to argue that the lines are bendy, because you can't redefine Euclid's geometry, and you can't argue successfully that you can have a curved line when it specifically says straight. So I think they're cornered and they just don't realize it, but they need that level to be curved.
Yeah, and they're more cornered than they know, because, again, I'm going to trim this out from yesterday's after show. It is published on the second channel, but Zanuck and I are discussing it based on my newfound knowledge thanks to Bev and Brian. And ultimately speaking, because they're utilising the same exact tools on the tangent plane, their own surveyors will affirm that these pieces of equipment establish plumb, that would be vertical, and level, that would be horizontal, with plumbs and levels, water levels and plumb bobs. Well, those tools aren't assumed to be moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. They are absolutely being used with Euclidean principles attached. So if they try to cite anything whatsoever that suggests in any way, shape or form that you've got two plumb bobs moving towards the centre of presupposed Earth, well, your citations with your surveyors for globe, beyond their presupposition, they've made a tangent plane that's flat and are using those tools without those principles ever getting in the way. Now, if Earth was a sphere, they would point to the presupposed centre of the presupposed Earth if gravity was bullshit story number 1 true, and we hold all their nonsense axioms as being correct. Well, if that was the case, that would cause very real problems in surveying. Because you don't have to assume that they're running parallel. If they're running parallel, they're running parallel. That principle must hold true for Euclidean geometry to work, and that's what they're using. So they're never going to get an affirmation that they're pointing towards the centre of a sphere, because that's not how they're used by their own surveyors. So they're far more cornered than they perhaps even realise when it comes to this surveying the plane that we live on. We're all surveying a plane.
The only people pushing a different narrative are the pseudoscience wizards, and they have to use keywords like local plumb, right? And what they're saying is locally on a sphere, plumb or a zenith, it's plumb to your local area, flat 1 foot or whatever it may be. And that's,
exactly. So these,
and then they're saying it's not parallel from top to bottom. Well, that's not true. That's not what reality is out here in the real world.
And you'll
But it
never
isn't.
hear
Hold
a
on, I've just got to
planet
correct that because
survey.
it's not their reality either, Dave. Because what they're saying is, once they've drawn that zenith on whatever part of the presupposed sphere Earth that they're on, and they draw a centre point with a zenith that's drawn in their imagination to the centre of a presupposed Earth. From that moment on, they've plotted out a quarter of a mile of completely flat territory that they're going to survey with the same tools you use, holding the same principles those tools demonstrate. So from the moment that they've drawn the zenith, if they move out a quarter of a mile in one direction and then drop a plumb, their assumption is that it's going to run parallel to the zenith that they drew in the first instance at the centre point. So my point is that they don't even hold those principles, so that you're going to have both plumbs moving to a converging point at the centre of Earth that they presuppose is spherical. They don't. They actually assume that they are running parallel and must, because that's how they're doing their work on their tangent plane. So no, they're not. They're not holding true that the principles of these pieces of equipment actually in any way demonstrate sphericity. To get around the fact that they don't, they use a flat plane to beyond when they've moved out their zenith from that presupposed ball Earth centre. But it's only once, and it's only for the centre. Sorry, go ahead.
They double check their work based on that, correct? You see what I'm saying? When they take their measurement, if something is off according to plumb and parallel, then they know they made a mistake. You understand what I'm saying? They're double checking against what you just said. Plane,
Exactly.
parallel, zenith,
Exactly.
everything.
So they draw a zenith and say this point in the centre of this quarter of a mile that we're going to now work on goes to the centre of a ball. We all clear? Everyone on the work site? Everyone clear? That we've now done that, right? We all understand that we're working on a ball. Yeah, we all understand. Okay, right, let's move forward. Quarter of a mile in that direction, a plumb bob will still be parallel to where I'm standing now. Everyone clear? Yep, I'm clear. So parallel, still parallel, even a quarter of a mile in that direction. Yep, we're all clear. Okay. And if it's not, when we make a measurement, it's deviated from that in even the slightest amount, we know we've made a mistake. Because this parallel line that I'm going to draw from this zenith point, I'm assuming, and a quarter of a mile in that direction, they're both definitely going to be parallel. Now, they wouldn't be if you're on a sphere with their axioms, but beyond the assumption they've done a zenith point at the centre that's to the centre of a sphere, beyond that point, all of Euclid's principles are holding true. Parallel's parallel, even a quarter of a mile that way. And if it ain't, like you say, Dave, they've got it wrong. So it must be parallel.
It has to be, and that's the way they double check it. And also, water will do the same thing. If you pour a large parking lot, whatever, and you have a slight dip from zenith, right, a drop from zenith, it'll hold water right there. I promise you, every time. There's no getting around it. You see what I'm saying? It's just amazing that an educated man either can't get that fact or is fighting against it so hard. Like that's amazing.
It's the latter. It's cognitive dissonance. It's in contradiction of their religious belief. So they'll find an excuse. They'll seek out confirmation bias for their religious belief. They'll justify it to us, in reality to themselves.
When you see the pictures that they draw in the orthographic view, and they put the conflating of terms, and it comes from the university, what's the kid at school supposed to do? Does he not just accept it?
I've just thought of a really interesting paradox for them. If they claim that water follows the shape of the Earth because of whatever reason, be it the center of the Earth or whatever, this is going to be a thought experiment. So just bear with me while I do it. Imagine getting a pipe, a hose pipe, and I'm stood on Earth, but Nathan's stood on Mars, and you connect the two with a pipe. Then you would never be able to fill it with water because it would always be trying to conform to the shape of Earth, and it would never get to Mars, would it? Because it would get a resistance against it because it's trying to go backwards because it wants to conform to Earth's shape on their model, right? So you wouldn't be able to fill a pipe between Earth and Mars on their model because the water can't conform to the shape of the pipe. It wants to conform to the shape of the Earth. So there's actually a limitation for how far you could get a pipe filled with water.
For a change, you got it right.
So even though Anthony says he's making it up, this guy pipes up.
His first words were poison in the well.
It's amazing.
I caught that 10 feet pipes up. Yeah, yeah.
This Chikey, right?
Can I just drop some?
All they got is ad homs or logical fallacies. That's all they got.
Yeah. Anthony,
Somebody
I'd like
asked
to
to
ask you
speak.
something about a frozen lake with water underneath it, because you think a lot like this. If we have a frozen lake of, let's say, 10 square miles or whatever, and it freezes over 2 feet, and the water is pressed down and is used up to make the ice and all that, but there's still water underneath, and you drill a hole in the center of that lake. When the water rises up, it's going to gush out of that hole. I think we all agree to that when you first drill the hole. But when it settles back down, does it settle down to the water level with the ice on top, or does it settle to a different level?
In their rhetoric,
I think it's
sorry, Sleeping Warrior asked you. Sorry.
I think it's settled back down to the water level with the ice on top, wouldn't it?
I don't know, man.
Unless there's been pressure built up somehow, and then there's a little bit of a discrepancy. But it should. I can't see how it would be anything else other than
That was my point, though. Does the ice freeze and kind of pushing down on the water that's under it, or is the ice, when it freezes, always going up, like rising up as it
Yeah,
freezes?
it'd have to
See what I'm
always
saying?
be
It's
going
not-
up, wouldn't it? Because the ice. Oh, I don't know actually.
heavier.
Maybe there's a balancing point between the two.
Ice expands.
Ice expands, right? But does it expand down, or does it float up as it expands? You understand what I'm saying? Because if it goes down, then it's creating some type of pressure, and that water level, when you drill that hole, would not be the same water level as under the ice. Does
It's
that make
less
sense?
dense. Ice is less dense.
You're looking for temperature. The water underneath the ice is 34 degrees always.
I get it.
The density alone would dictate where it would lie and where it would expand to.
It's just something I haven't worked out in my mind. I'm not.
Water freezes on the top, not on the bottom. The water temperature underneath the ice is always 34 degrees. Otherwise, it would freeze all the way to the ground or to the bottom of the lake. And so that's the critical part right there on that, what you're saying.
Yeah, but you can have ice underneath the water that's not 32 degrees. It's not going to automatically melt.
No, that's not what I said. When you have that lake you described, the water underneath the ice is 34 degrees. It'll never get colder than that. And it's freezing on top. It's 10 degrees on top of the ice. And that's where the air and the water constantly build up.
Okay, let me do it a different way then. Like an iceberg, it's pushing down into the water. So, there's volume of that iceberg underneath the water, correct? So if the same thing is happening on a frozen lake, it's pushing down, wouldn't that create pressure?
Yeah, you'd have weight for sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So when you drill a hole, wouldn't that water be pushed up further than the water level of the natural lake? You see what I'm saying? Of where the water is now with a frozen top? It would have pressure underneath, right? Pushing that water up, trying to get out of that hole. That's why when you drill a hole, it gushes out because it has pressure, right? But my question was, yeah.
Well, yeah, until it freezes again. And then you'll have a gap. You always have a little bit of gap underneath the ice, right?
Do you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I don't see that.
That's it. That wasn't rhetorical. Do you? You say you always have a gap underneath ice. Is that the case?
Well, the water underneath the ice, according to scientists, is 34 degrees. And that's Mother Nature, so that it doesn't go freeze everything. And so you have the barrier caused by the ice, and then that stays 34 degrees.
Yeah, but you understand my theory, right? Like the ice is below the 34 degrees anyway. When it freezes, the ice is pushing down and up, I believe. So does that downward force of the ice freezing over the lake cause pressure to make that water, when you drill a hole, rise up and be a higher level? And to what degree? I think it does. I think it creates pressure. That's why when we drill a hole in the ice, the water comes gushing out and then it kind of settles back down. But I don't think it settles all the way back down to the layer of where the ice and the water meet. I think it's above that layer because there's a hole right there. That's where the pressure is coming out.
Isn't ice less dense than water?
Yeah, but it's still under the water, just like an iceberg, because there's weight on top.
Water, is it? It can't do if it's less dense.
Put an ice cube in a glass of water. Some of it is below the water line, correct? It still floats, but some of its mass is below the water line. Less dense just makes it float because it's in a more dense medium as water. So it's floating, but it doesn't mean some of its mass isn't below the water line. It's just like a boat. The reason a big ship made of metal afloat because of its volume and buoyancy. But it's still, a lot of it, a good portion of its mass is below the water line. And believe me, there's pressure created there, because open a sea cock without a pipe on it and water will come up like a geyser. That's pressure, right?
Indeed.
So I guess
it will fill the available space.
You chopped up. Say it again.
It will fill the available space.
You're talking about water.
I know. I'm just saying. I've had a boat. I've had leaks. It will fill the available space. It's looking to fill something. You put a seacock open, it's going to come and flood your boat. That's why you need your pumps. Your pumps kick on.
Unless it's a vacuum, then it don't fill it, apparently.
Yeah, we're talking about water.
That was my whole point.
Hold on, let's not conflate this. We're talking about water. Did you want to round out your point anyway, Dave?
I do. The point I was trying to get to with George that guy, is when he did his test over a frozen lake, how is he getting the water level if it's different levels? You see what I'm saying? Like, he's drilling holes and finding water level, but he described that he did the water levels before. I just don't see how he did that. But I was just wondering, it just made me think if the pressure of the ice pushing down would create a different water level in those holes that would be drilled, like when we ice fish or whatever, and I think it does. It makes sense that it does.
Chocolate?
I've never seen ice fishing and never seen a gush of water come up when they drill holes.
Oh, I have.
Well, I tell you what you do. Go ice fishing, and right when you're drilling that hole, put your face over it. You'll remember it forever. Water will gush out. Or open a seacock in a boat, with a 1/2-inch valve, and that water will squirt up like a geyser. It's just pressure.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley or Nathan Oakley 1980 Premium Stream audience for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!